Hi and welcome to tonight's lecture, Prepare Like a Pro. I'm going to show you two examples of games that were won by Black thanks to a very good home preparation in two different styles. One is a victory of mine in 2012, so 10 years ago, when chess engines were not that powerful, and one is a victory by Dubov, who is one of the most creative players in the world in 2019, whose preparation was much deeper than mine, but I mean these are two different ways to prepare, and with the help of these two games I will also show you a little bit how to use ChessBase and the material that goes with it. So let's start with my own games. I was playing against Grandmaster Riazantsev with the black pieces. Player before, but second, it was also the last game before the French Federation decides on who will represent France in the next Olympiad. And well, the four spots were more or less clear, and I was fighting for the fifth spot, for the fifth one. So it was quite important to do well that day and not to end with a loss. So I was really, I really wanted to do my best in that game. Well, I always want to do my best when I play, but that game was particularly important. Anyway, at the time I was playing the Gruenfeld defense, and I noticed when preparing for the game that my opponent was playing the bishop d2 variation, which is interesting. It's been played recently by very good players. And it's also tricky. For example, Anand beat Nepomniachtchi in less than 20 moves just a few years ago, just because Nepomniachtchi confused the move order somewhere. I don't remember the exact game, but he just lost within the opening. And the way I prepared for that game was the following. I only had my laptop, I had ChessBase, I had of course a big database with millions of games, a database that everyone who has ChessBase has as well, because it usually comes together as a package. And of course I had a chess engine, but not a very powerful one. First of all, it was 2012, not 2022, and it was just my laptop, not like a very expensive home computer or something like that. So anyway, I had little time to prepare. I saw that my opponent was playing this line here. Knight b6 is a possibility. Actually, it's also a possibility here right away. If knight b6, then bishop e3, and the idea behind bishop d2 is obviously to take back with a bishop on c3 after knight takes e3. So this is the main line, or at least one of the main lines, and I was working on this position, and I was trying to look at what had been played, and I was trying to see what the engine was recommending for black here. At the time, the theory on this variation was not as developed as it is now. Well, the first thing to do when you want to prepare is to look at what has been played before. So then you use reference. So unfortunately now it would take some time because the search booster has to be created. It takes a few minutes. So, well, should we take these 2 minutes now? If well, I'm not sure. We better wait 2 minutes, I think.
So while we're doing that, Roman, let me move your mic just a little bit because it's a little bit scratchy. I don't have you on camera right now. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
So how do you know in these lines which is like a critical position to be looking at either the engine or looking at like what's been played?
So the first thing to do is to look at what's been played. That's why I am taking this. That's why I want to wait these 2 minutes to this search booster. This search booster you only have to do once, and after that it works for life. But nobody ever did it on this computer, so.
How did you do that function? How did you initiate that?
So I just clicked on the reference. Okay. Notation is where you have the moves, and reference is to look for the games that have been played. And it's quite important to show the display. To show the result of this reference search, because it's a very useful tool for working. Obviously nowadays you can also, you have plenty of information everywhere, and actually for a very small amount of money compared to 10 years ago. Now you have excellent chess books, excellent video contents everywhere, and many variations. You can get a full repertoire just coming from a GM, just spending a few dollars. You can have a very good chess book for $30, and it gives you a full repertoire that takes perhaps 100 or 200 hours to do by yourself. So nowadays we have this luck that we have access to everything, and we have computers. It's not like 30 years ago when there was chess informant, and the top grandmasters were traveling with like 50 kilos of books full of chess games, and so on. Now we have chess engines, we have ChessBase, and look how easy it is. For example, you look at this position, you see that e6 has been played 39 times, and you can already see that it's been played by Grichuk, Vidit, Erdos, Hammer. So that means it is a very reliable move. Same goes for Queen d6, which has been played by Nepomniachtchi and Vashiragrav, who are two big Gruenfeld specialists. Then you have Knight d7, but it's been played only 4 times. It's been played by Vashiragrav, but the last time was in 2016. So you may assume that if Vashiragrav played another move later, then it means that Knight d7 should be inferior. It doesn't mean you don't have to look at it, especially if you are white. You have to look at all the moves, but as black, there are 99% chances that the best move in this position is either e6 or Queen d6. And well, for example, in that game I didn't play e6, I played Queen d6, to which my opponent played the most logical move f4. So there are many games, but I think they are mostly recent ones. My game was 2012. You see that you barely have any game. You have one game here in 2011, and mine might be the second oldest in the line, because Queen d6 is a pretty weird move. f4 is very tempting for white, and actually Queen d6, as I said, was almost new when I played it. So I was just trying to understand it, working with a computer, and the engine. Well, you can see that now e6 seems to be the main move. It's been played by Nepomniachtchi, Vashiragrav. So it's a sign that it should be the best move. But at the time, these games were not existing, and my laptop, my engine, was suggesting Knight d7, which is probably not that bad anyway, because, for example, I see that Sam Shankland played it 6 years later, so it cannot be too bad. But it's a very strange concept, because white just goes e5, and then you have to go back with the queen. It seems pretty weird. So I was preparing on the line, and the engine was assessing this position as around equal, and I had no game to help me. I could only use my brain and the chess engine. So the chess engine, okay, here you have Deep Fritz, which is a little bit outdated. Nowadays it is much better to use Houdini or Stockfish or Komodo. There is also Lila now that exists. But anyway, the engine was there to help me, but I knew that it was not like 100% trustable because it was just because it was not very powerful. But I thought that in that position, if I were white, I would definitely go h4. You know, after all these weird moves, queen c7, knight e7. So now, going for this research, I see that Grandmaster Onichuk played knight f3. That might actually h4 has only been played in my game, and later two players played knight f3. So it might just be a better move. But at the time, I simply thought. The first question I asked myself was, okay, what if white plays c4? It looks like he has a wonderful center, but of course if c4 I have knight takes e5, and the knight can't be taken because then queen takes and queen takes rook. So the way I was thinking that position is what are the black's perspectives and what would I play if I were white. The plan for black is quite clear. Black wants c4, knight b6, rook d8, and to target the d5 pawn. And I thought if I were white in that position, I would definitely go h4 because the white king seems completely unprotected. The black pieces all went to the queen side. The white won a lot of time in the center. And generally, when you dominate the center, then you try to attack on the side and on the opponent's king if you can. I really thought if I were white, I would go h4 in that position. So I decided to try to push it with the computer. Of course, h5 is a logical follow-up. So now I followed the computer line. Now, of course, I was verifying things like, I don't know, f5 with the idea to go queen h6 and so on, but it never works because e5 is hanging, so knight f3 is definitely the move. Bishop g4. I was analyzing this position, so pawn takes is definitely logical. Now taking with the h pawn would be too much because after f5 followed by queen h6, well, maybe f5 doesn't work because e5 is again in the air, but well, something like this, well, you see why the engine is useful. Something like this with a queen coming to h6 is highly suspicious for black. So fg is very logical here. It activates a rook. The king is a little bit more, it is a little safer, and I want to play rook a8 and take the d5 pawn. So why should I attack here? And already by then you see that here the engine is suggesting either knight g5 or rook h4. These are the two moves that I've been looking at when preparing for the game. But I definitely spent more time on knight g5, which seemed to me much more critical than rook h4. I mean, rook h4 takes. I mean, that doesn't look too threatening for black with the rook coming to d8 and so on. It is true that the bishop is also coming to h3, but I mean, knight g5, just like h4, I thought, what would I do if I were white? And definitely knight g5 is a move I would go for. Just bringing as many pieces as possible to the attack. Then rook a8. I mean, when I was working on the line, I was finding it pretty suspicious. I would not have been surprised if suddenly the engine would have shown a win for white, you know. But it did not. After rook a8, it turned out that black was holding in this position. If white just takes on h7, for example, let's say with a knight, then rook d5, and it's just turning to a disaster for black. For example, queen there, rook takes f4, queen takes f4, rook takes e5, check, and then rook f5, and black is just completely winning. So d6 is actually the only move for white. Black has to take, and rook h7 is extremely logical as well, just taking the h7 pawn and attacking the black queen. But the engine was insisting that black is fine in that position. Rook h6 is a logical move. And here the engine wanted to take. And after analysis, I realized that the best white can do here, the only way to actually save himself is to, well, he can start with, actually the move order doesn't matter. He can start with knight f7 or even with rook h6, but the only way for white to save the game is to play f5. You have to plug the laptop, Ben, because the battery is running low.
Yeah, keep going. I'll get it.
Yeah. The f5 is the only way for white to save the game. Then after rook d2 there is a perpetual check here, which can't be avoided. After my opponent played knight f7. I mean, rook h6, the engine is very illogical because after king g7 it looks like a nonsense. But after f5, white is still in time to make a draw. Because if I take the rook, then knight f7 check, and there I'm getting checkmated, unfortunately.
And see if it's charging right now.
It is. My opponent played knight f7, I played king h7, but of course I was just repeating everything that I had been working on before the game, for the simple reason that I've been trying to sit in my opponent's shoes, thinking what I would play with white, and what he played with white is exactly what I would have done. So of course I could have gone wrong because my opponent was a stronger player than me. On the other hand, the variation was pretty forcing, and well, again in that position the only way to save the game was to find f5, because it's returning mate on h6, queen h6 mate, so I have to take the queen, and white is in time to, after rook takes queen, to come back and then again give this perpetual check. But at this moment I was already very confident. Why? Because I had 2 hours on my clock, I didn't have to think for a single move, and my opponent was already playing with 30 seconds. And I knew that if he wanted to save the game, he had to find this f5 idea. And he did not. He just played rook h6 check, and now after king g7, this is just completely lost for white. Takes. The rook is untouchable because of queen e3, followed by queen takes e2 checkmate. And after rook takes d8, the rook is hanging, the queen is hanging, it's basically over. My opponent played rook h4, I took on d2. Okay, my opponent has 2 rocks for the queen, but with such a weak king, basically the whole position is collapsing, all the pawns will be lost. So the game continued for a few more moves, and then my opponent just resigned. So basically, I beat my first 2700 player in what I would call a no game. I did not have to think a single move in that game. When my preparation finished, I mean, the moment my preparation finished was here when he blundered with rook h6 check, and after king g7, it's already -5. It's already a position that anybody would win against anybody. And how did that happen? Simply because I could guess what would be the human reaction in a very tense position. And here h5, I still believe, I mean, now of course I know that the engine, also people know that h4, h5 is not necessarily working, because as we saw, other strong players played knight f3 instead. But I was really confident that my opponent would play h4, because it really seemed very logical to me. And well, this way I could guess basically all my opponent's moves, which were all very logical. I just anticipated them, and even with the help of a quite weak engine, I could just win the game without any effort. That's also a tip I got by French Grandmaster Etienne Bacro once. But I think that was later. But in one game, I remember that he did beat. Well, I won't say who was the player, but he beat an experienced grandmaster with the white pieces. Somebody rated like 26-30. He beat him out of the opening, and I was pretty surprised because he had anticipated what was known to be pretty bad for black, but he had anticipated like the way. I mean, it felt like he was sure that these bad moves were coming, were going to happen. And I asked him after the game, how is it possible that in this critical line it looked so normal for you that your opponent played these moves that are known to be dubious? He said, because weak engines are suggesting these moves. And when we had this discussion, engines were already stronger. It was possible to get better computers that were refuting the line that Bakro was talking about. But he said, I knew that my opponent was not preparing with a good computer, so I simply, on purpose, did not use a strong computer. I put a weak computer on the position just to see what he would most likely prepare. And this way he anticipated all the moves. So he said, actually the exact sentence he said is, if you want to beat somebody who is using a bad computer, use the same computer. That's a sentence I always remembered. Nowadays it is more difficult to win games this way because it is so easy to have access to very strong computers. For example, here we can't see it on the screen, but there are now you don't even need to buy a very expensive computer to use a powerful engine. You have cloud engines that are provided by ChessBase, and just for a few cents per minute you can get some of the best chess engines in the world. They're not using even your RAM memory on your computer, so you can even use a very bad, very old computer, and just for a few cents per minute you can have a very powerful engine helping you. This is called Cloud Engine, and you can have a look at it on chessbase.com. Everyone has access to it, and this is the reason why it becomes tougher and tougher to beat weaker opponents, especially when they're young and computer addicted, because everybody has access to the same information at a very low price. This is what makes chess so different now than it was 10 years ago. So this was a preparation based on intuition. But this is obviously not the only way to prepare for a chess game. Yes?
After F5 at the end there, how long did your preparation go for? So he deviated with rook h7.
Well,
after F5, I was going to say, how long did your preparation go from here?
Well, I don't have a choice. He's threatening mate in 1, so my preparation was just take the queen and make a draw. That's it.
Gotcha.
There is nothing I could do. Even if I did have 2 hours versus a few seconds, but had he found F5, there was nothing I could do. If I don't capture the queen, I am getting mated on the next move, so I would have to make a draw.
Essentially just ended it. Okay.
So I knew there was a draw, and at this moment I was really hoping that he would. At the start of the game, of course, with the black pieces against a stronger player, I was happy with the draw. But at this moment of the game, obviously, I was really hoping he would not find this move F5. Right. And it is not surprising that he did not find it, because with 30 seconds, it is not like the first thing that comes to mind to just allow your opponent to capture your queen. And it is not a very usual perpetual check. Yeah. So that game by Dubov was played 7 years later, and this is a totally different level of preparation, much higher than mine. Much higher than the one I showed in the previous game. Nowadays it is very difficult to find new ideas in openings because everything has been cleaned up. Everybody has been using cloud engines on all positions. The theory has been cleaned everywhere till move 20. I mean, if you play against somebody who is well prepared, I mean, to out-prepare him, I mean, it is almost impossible to out-prepare him. So, for example, in that game, Dubov was playing against Bjerre, who is a very, very talented Danish kid. I mean, when I met him a few months ago, I think he was still 17, if I'm not wrong. So 2019, he was 14, and he was already a grandmaster, or maybe he was not grandmaster, but he had 2500, as you can see on the screen. And well, he was a hard worker. So to beat him in the opening, especially with black, is something that you can only manage with a lot of creativity and a very strong engine. But Dubov managed it. Dubov is one of the most creative players in this, perhaps the most creative player in the world. Actually, he is the one who always finds new ideas everywhere, when others just do not find any. There is a reason why Magnus Carlsen was asking him to prepare him for the match. You know about this I'm missing the word. No. Well, I mean, yeah, the World Championship. But I mean, there was this conflict between Russians after. Well, not as big as the current conflict, but there was a conflict between Russians and Dubov, because Dubov had helped Magnus prepare for the match against Nepomniachtchi, who is Russian, just like Dubov.
A conflict of interest.
Yeah, well, not conflict of interest, but they were claiming that he should not help Carlsen beat someone from his own country. So there has been, well, for several days or weeks, people were always talking about it. But okay, Dubov, I mean, just did his job. As he said, he agreed to work for Magnus for the match even before learning who the challenger would be. Well, you know, you can't just... of course, you have to be patriotic, but if you have a chance to work for several months for Magnus, you're working with the best player in the world for several months. You're getting a lot of money for that. It's also a lot of prestige. To tell the guy that he should have declined is a complete nonsense. That is my opinion. But there is a reason why even somebody like Carlsen wants Dubov in his preparation team, because Dubov simply has a lot of ideas. And what he found in that game against Bjerre in 2019 was amazing. And obviously, the creative part is found by Dubov himself, because engines, I mean, this is why engines are unbeatable. Engines are not affected by psychology. So if something doesn't work, the engine will just not mention it, because well, if it doesn't work, even if there are 10 ways to go wrong, 20 ways to go wrong, if there is just one way to go right, he's not going to suggest that idea, because he knows exactly how to refute it. But if you could prepare in a clever way, well, this is how to say that. What is a good nowadays? You can't just out-prepare your opponent by having a better chess engine or better chess book or better chess coach. You can only out-prepare somebody by finding a creative idea. And how to find a creative idea? You have to fight against the computer. You have to actually find one of these lines where the engine claims that there is for example, some advantage for white, but there is a difference if, for example, a move is bad and the refutation is obvious, or the move is bad but it leaves white only two choices, and even if you consider that it is not easy to choose the right direction, there are still 50% chances that your opponent will go wrong. So a good preparation nowadays is when you are able to find something where there are many ways to go wrong and only one way to go right. And this is what Dubov has done in that game. He found an incredible creative idea. So he went for this line, aiming for a Marshall Gambit. So c3, d5 would be mainstream theory. That would be the Marshall Gambit. This has been played millions of times, not millions, but thousands and thousands and thousands of times, and by all top players. And here, two moves are called anti-Marshall. One is h3, and one is a4. These two moves are just supposed to prevent d5 in the position. This is why they are called anti-Marshall. And incredibly enough, Dubov in that position played d5 anyway. That was like a revolution, you know. After a4 just threatening a takes b5, and you play d5 anyway, just like nothing happened. This was quite incredible. Pawn takes d5 was played. So after a b5, his idea was probably to take bishop g4, and for example, if you switch on the engine, it says that white is much better at the beginning. But give it some more time. So this is where you have to fight against the computer. Or actually it could be that here it was ef3 first, queen f3 and e4. And you see the engine is claiming that white is better, but in fact this position for a human, I mean, the engine is claiming that white is better, so that's the reason why nobody thought of playing that with black. Because the engine says 0.70, so people think, okay, I won't play something where I'm clearly worse, where the engine says that white has a clear advantage immediately. But if you look at this position optically, I mean, or perhaps even bishop g4 first, it's very hard to play for white. Look, he wants to go queen f1 here. Do you really want to play such a position as white? If you are if you anticipated everything and you know that it is better for white, then okay, you go for it, bad luck. But over the board, I would personally, if I were white, I would not go for such a line where all the black pieces are developed and my king is weak, my queen is on f1, almost trapped. That looks to me like massive compensation for black, although if you really push, the engine does not agree with that. So Dubov found this idea. e5 is also a critical move. Now knight takes d5 would not be a great idea because that would be a little bit too much. That would be really too much. But here he played knight a5. He wants to capture the bishop, and he wants to play some kind of Marshall Gambit. For example, after knight e5, black can take. Now we should be careful that knight c6 does not happen. So I'm not sure queen d5 is too great because after knight c3 we're losing time, but maybe something like that. And again, if knight c6 takes, well, actually this is a game, sorry. This is a game. But for example, see, the engine also says that bishop a2 is good, but after e4, it wants crazy lines. It says knight e5, only way to be better. And if I remember correctly, there was some move here, and then the only continuation was somewhere some knight f7. I don't remember how it worked exactly. Was it bishop d6 here? No, bishop d6 is just d4. I've been analyzing this game, but unfortunately could not find my analysis before the lecture, because it was from 3 years ago. It was on my old computer, and I could not find it. But anyway, it's also a position that looks very unclear. I mean, the knight on e5 has no square. That's not something. And you see, the more you wait, the more the evaluation goes down.
And if it's just one move where black is better, then that's not a position you want as white.
Yeah, if you have to, I mean, there are tricks everywhere simply. And what white played in the game was also very intuitive. I mean, this is really, as I said, something that looks extremely dangerous for white after e4. Of course, if the white pawn was already on d3, then it would be a completely different position, but e4 and bishop d6, bishop g4, this is something you do not want as white. So this is something you easily anticipate. Knight b3 and bishop b7. Now definitely the only move for white to try something is knight c6, because if you just recover the d5 pawn without losing the bishop pair, you have great compensation. You have a great version of the Marshall Gambit. So knight c6, definitely critical. And it can be pretty discouraging that also, again here, the engine says that white is better. I mean, many players, they would just stop. They would think, okay, after a b5, the engine claims that there is some advantage for white. After bishop a2 as well, after knight e5 as well, many players would just give up and think, okay, this is not a reliable idea. But Dubov understood that all of these positions are difficult to play for white. And here after bishop c5, the best for white would have been to go for something like d4 and try to exchange many pieces. For example, knight e3 and try to go bishop e3, just exchange some pieces, or perhaps a b5 here. Knight e4 is the only move. You can't take because of take on d4. So that was also a computer line that Dubov had prepared, that is 100% sure. Knight e4. You can't take the knight because of bishop f2 and queen takes queen. And bishop e3 has to be played. Takes a b5. And for example, such an endgame, okay, you're not going to win as black, or perhaps knight a3, not knight c3. You're not going to win this as black, but you're going to make a draw, which is not that bad as black. I mean, even if it was higher rated, I mean, what to do? He's black, he is finding some creative idea, but okay, you can't, to be better with black is something that does not happen very often nowadays. And his opponent played d3, which is the most logical move, because d4 is clearly drawish, and d3 is definitely what looks critical, because you want to play bishop e3, you want to keep an extra pawn. In the position, white has 2 extra pawns. But here Dubov found bishop takes f2, move that at first the computer was not showing, but now, look, once you show it, it already drops the evaluation to equality. And actually it says equality, and it's a quite weak engine that we're using right now. So you can imagine that using a very strong engine, it was probably showing bishop takes f2 immediately. And after takes and queen d4, it is actually extremely difficult for white to make a draw. If I remember correctly, I mean, there are many moves. The white king can go back to f1, but then after knight g4, it's very ugly. I mean, queen f2 is a threat, knight h2 is a threat. The rocks are coming in the center. White is completely underdeveloped on the queen side. And even the engine claims that white is fighting for equality. As far as I remember, bishop e3 was still fine. No, actually bishop e3 loses. I think king f3 was a draw, if I remember correctly. Black can already play queen g4, queen d4, but he may also play on. But I think it was holding somehow. Yeah, I mean, if we let it run, I don't. Maybe it finds something. But if I remember my analysis correctly, that was a draw for white. But who wants to play king f3 in this position? I mean, after queen d4, the position is already so frightening. And white played bishop e3, knight g4, check, king f3. This is more natural than king f3 right away, because at least you are forcing some exchanges. But this is also a nightmare to play for white. If takes, at first the engine claims that white is fine, but actually white is not fine at all. The rook is coming to e6. This is going to end very badly for white. And after rook e2, as in the game, black played queen f6, king g3. Of course, black could have repeated moves, but here g5 is just a forced mate. You want queen f4 and queen h4. Rook f2 is pretty much the only move. Check, check. If king g3, you get mated right away. So king g4, queen h4, and white's resigned anyway because queen f5, there would be queen takes rook, and the game is over. So Dubov won that game in just 23 moves with black, just reinventing completely the Marshall Gambit, playing d5 in this position. So let's have a look, for example, at the games at the existing games. The move d5. It could be that it's been played a few times since Dubov played it. But okay, that was 2019, so let's sort out by years. Okay, some players played it, you know, a very long time ago. Then then basically nobody played it for many years. Until, I mean, okay, there is one between 2008 and 2019. There is only one game by some 1800 player who was definitely unprepared. See, after pawn takes, he played e4, so he was just playing random moves. Definitely, he did not play d5 because he was prepared. He just played it like that over the board. So you can basically say that during 11 years it was not played. Even that game, after pawn takes, black did not go knight a5 but played e4. So this game does not really count either. 2005, okay, 2005. I mean, so let's say that almost in 15 years it had never been played, and Dubov reinvented it. And of course, since Dubov played it, then it's been repeated by many players because they all understood it is a very interesting idea. So where is the Dubov game? Yeah, it's here. Okay, and then of course, after that, many players started to repeat it because Dubov showed the way. But Dubov was the first, let's say, in the 21st century to understand that d5 in this position is tricky. It is probably objectively better for white, and 90% of players just did not consider it because of the engine evaluation that goes completely against it. But Dubov got it right. He found many new ideas. He understood that many of the positions that the engine assesses as better for white actually seem very inhuman to play. And he found this bishop takes f2 idea in that position. He probably knew that if his opponent would play d4, he was unlikely to win the game. But d3 is definitely what I mean, as white, you're supposed to play for a win, especially in a match, I mean, especially in a team competition. And if you want to beat or even to draw against Russia, you have to try something with the white pieces because you are worse on all the boards. You need to try something with the white pieces, and d3 is definitely the way to try here. I mean, just trying to keep the pawn and play bishop e3 and keep some extra material. And okay, after bishop f2, it would be very difficult to hold this position for any human. I mean, give that position to Carlsen to play as white. Maybe he will find a way to draw, but I'm not even sure. I mean, it is so difficult to play. So that was a very deep preparation. I can show a preparation of the same kind, which I am deeply. Oops! I just closed the notation accidentally. Okay, let's have a look at the mega database in ChessBase. Okay, I haven't selected the games because I thought these two games would be enough for 1 hour, but let me show you something similar. So I'll try to find the mega database. Oh, actually it's here. I see it. Okay. So for example, I was working, as I already said, I was working with Topalov from 2010 to 2014. So let's have a look. And that position is a main, I mean, this is a main line in the Queen's Gambit. c5. Kramnik likes to play knight h5 in this position. I mean, Aronian likes to play with c6, which gives white time to play h3 and keep the bishop. Knight e4 is a trendy line in more recent years. But knight h5 has always been Kramnik's favorite move, just going for the bishop. And Topalov and I found this interesting idea, bishop e5, which nobody had considered, because if you switch on the engine, it says that after knight takes e5, you need to take with a knight not to be worse. And okay, this position is definitely nothing for white. There are even people who commented on the game, on this game Topalov-Kramnik, and said this is a mystery how Topalov could play this bishop e5 move when after knight takes e5 there is definitely nothing for white. And actually this has been played even in a game Nakamura-Anand or Anand-Nakamura, I don't remember, although it's not appearing here, but I'm absolutely sure there is a game of Anand in this position, which went knight e5, knight f6, and of course there was no advantage for white. But our idea was to fight against the computer and to prove that d5 was very interesting in that position. We are threatening g4, trapping the knight, so the engine claims that black is better after g6, but we simply strongly disagreed with this evaluation. There we wanted to go g4 and h4. And the engine doesn't like it. It wants to take a pawn, but then we wanted queen c2, or perhaps h5 first. Perhaps h5 first, because sometimes the queen develops somewhere else. And in fact, if you push the position, there is a very strong attack coming for white. Queen c2, long castle, bishop d3, and there is a very strong attack on the f file. See, the engine wants bishop e7. Okay, let's play the first engine moves, and you will see that the evaluation just drops. It wants to go to play like this. Okay, let me play, for example, bishop d3, or maybe not bishop d3 in that position. Yeah, maybe there it is not bad to double rocks. Okay, it already claims the position is equal, and if you push and push and push, you realize that actually white has a very strong attack. So that was a bit similar, that we simply thought, okay, if after d5 the way for black to be better is to go g6, put the knight on g7 and suffer this incredible attack, this position is impossible to handle as black. And we had a very deep analysis of that position, which is perhaps objectively fine for black, but just extremely dangerous. I do not even think that black is better in this position, whatever the engine says, because we put a lot of effort. I mean, we spent, I don't know how many hours we spent on this position, where I spent more hours than him because, well, we were finding the ideas together, and then I was his second, so I was the one pushing them. Together we spent perhaps 50-70 hours on that position. I mean, on the wall line after bishop e5, and we understood that it's very tricky for black. And actually Kramnik kind of knew it, because he played c6 very quickly. He did not play knight takes e5, which is a computer recommendation. He played something with g6, Topalov played h4, and Kramnik here played f5, which was dubious. Then the bishop came back to h2, and well, actually the pawn on h4 was not such a big deal. Black can take it, but then he gets in big trouble on the queen side. Queen a4, takes, and you see white is already winning. And if he has, okay, knight b8 only move, you see, I mean, this is just a horrible position to play for black. And there are many lines like this after bishop e5. Unfortunately, there are also lines that are good. I think f6 is best, and then c6. so that you can so that white can never push his h pawn because of knight takes g3. I think this is fine for black. But then several players repeated the line. And for example, I know that so Anand Nakamura, this is a game I was referring to. It was slightly different. Okay, bishop e5, c6 was played. Okay, but g4, rook g1 in that position was not, that was not threatening. But just after Topalov won that game, Yotov repeated the line. But after bishop g3 here, his opponent immediately took. And again, in a position that at first the engine came that black is doing fine. After bishop d3, f5, g4, white has had a terrifying attack. Takes. Black played c4. White took. Black played knight f6. White sacrificed. Queen c2. Then knight g5. The queen is coming to g6. Then knight f7. Checkmate is basically coming. So black had to give away a lot of material and was just lost and resigned a couple of moves later. So the idea was very dangerous, but if you only use the engine, it will say that the move is stupid. If you only use your brain, it is bad as well, because you need to know how to answer against the computer suggestion, because it is likely that your opponent will have checked it with a computer, and you need to know how to anticipate. So when you when you want to really prepare like a professional, you need to use both. The preparation needs to be a mix of human ideas, human intuition, and computer evaluation. This is what makes the difference between a good second and a bad second, because everyone can just push the button, push. I mean, here you can put the engine on. You leave it for. Okay, let's go back to the main game. You leave it for some time, then you press space bar, and it plays the first engine move. Then you wait for another 2 minutes, and you do it again. But this everybody can do. And the first time I met Topalov, he said, I had seconds like this, but if I only need somebody to press a button every 5 minutes, I rather give the job to my wife. I won't hire somebody, even if she does not play chess. Then I rather pay my wife to do the job instead of hiring a grandmaster, spend money for him to press the space bar. So this is a job of a second, basically, to find creative ideas that the computer will not completely destroy, because if the line is too bad, it is just too bad. Of course, we found this idea with Topalov with d takes e5 and then g4 h4, and we assessed it as very, very playable for white. But we also had many tries that were wrong and that we decided not to use, because there were just too many ways for the opponent to react well against them. But we also had many ideas of this kind that were that we considered very difficult to play for the opponent. And okay, that one brought him a nice victory against Kramnik, which was not very useful in the end, because he won that game, but he finished last in the tournament. This tournament did not go well. That was actually his only bad tournament from the years we worked together, but it was really bad. I think he scored -3 or something like this. But anyway, well, he did not. In the end, he did not care very much, because he said, the candidates, there is one winner and there are 7 losers, and to be second or to be 8th doesn't matter. You qualify for the World Championship or you don't qualify. But still, okay, that was a nice victory. Based on human intuition, and then pushed with the help of a chess engine, because of course it could be that the attack would be a total fail, and then we would we would give up on this bishop e5 idea, but we found out it was highly interesting. So that is a way to prepare. You need to find ideas. I mean, the basic is of course to learn the theory, to know what others know. For that you have chess books, you have chess videos. You can buy stuff on Chessables if you want to watch videos. You can buy books on Thinkers Publishing if you want to buy good chess books. There is good material everywhere, but then if you want to really out-prepare your opponent and you want to find your own novelties, it has to be a mix of your intuition and the help of the computer. This is exactly how Topalov beat Kramnik, and this is also how Dubov beat Bjerre in the game we saw just before. So I don't know if I've been clear enough in my explanations. And
only question is, so if, let's just pretend you're analyzing an attack, and then it turns out that it's like -10 for black, but it requires like 5 only moves. Would you still consider going for that, or no?
-10 is a bit too much. If it's really lost, depends on the tournament situation as well. Let's say that you need to win, and if you make a draw, then let's imagine you're playing the World Cup, and you lose the first game. It's a 2 games match. You need to win the second game absolutely, and you don't care whether you make a draw or you lose. Then okay, why not try? But generally, -10 is a bit too much. But if it's -1, for example, and that requires to find 5 only moves, which are difficult to find, then you can consider going for it. Okay. But this is pretty much the limit. You can't. I mean, you can't either afford to be completely lost out of the opening. So, for example, this bishop e5, we knew what was the best reaction for black. But in case black would do that, we knew basically how to more or less equalize with white and just have a normal game. Right. It would be a disappointment, but we knew how to limit the damage, and we knew that the damage was not enormous. And same goes to Dubov. If white knew what to do, it would not be completely winning. It would just be slightly better. So let's see if I missed some questions in the chat. Okay, people say ChessBase should be free. Well, but you know, ChessBase is a company, and a company has many employees, and if they give away their products for free, they won't survive very long.
Lichess, okay alternative.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Lichess is a decent alternative. It's not great, but
well, it's different. I mean, but ChessBase is not only the software. ChessBase has many things, of course. I mean, it developed many things, not only a software. Okay, some things you can get for free. For example, you can download tweaks every week, and then you don't have to buy the mega database every year. Yeah. Some things you can get for free, but not everything, and it's normal because otherwise there would be no business around chess if everybody had to give away his work for free. Then you can also say that when Dubov has a chance to work with Carlsen, he should work for free because he is also learning. When I worked for Topalov, I should have done it for free because I was also learning. Okay, you work and you get paid for that, and same goes for ChessBase and and same goes for book publishers and video publishers and so on. I don't see too many questions in the chat, so I think that's it for today. If you don't have any more questions.